We're recording.
A river.
All right, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to call the meeting to order of the 4A Economic Development Corporation, Tuesday, December 17th, 5 p.m. meeting at 5:05 p.m. All members are present and we do have a quorum. I move into the public forum. And not seeing anyone that wants to speak in the public forum, I'm going to go ahead and open and close that and move on to item number C, discussion action items. Number 1, discuss, consider, and act upon a resolution to take the required actions to dissolve the Town of Sunnyvale 4A Economic Development Corporation as per the desires of the citizens of the Town of Sunnyvale demonstrated in an election held on November 5th, 2019.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going to walk through a little bit of information, particularly for anybody who might be watching this meeting after the fact. I know you all have a lot of this in front of you. But basically, you know that on November 5th, the voters did support Proposition A, which was to dissolve the 4A Development Corporation and basically move that tax revenue over to the general fund. There's a lot of words in there, but that's the gist of what will happen. Proposition A passed by a majority of voters, received 871 more votes in favor of the proposition than not. It received 1,047 votes in favor and 176 votes against. Following the passage of the measure, we did meet with the 4A attorney to try to get some direction on what the steps were that we would need to take in order to dissolve the 4A. We also consulted with the town's attorneys as well, and then also we had a meeting with our auditor so that we could understand what the process should be and how we take the law and merge that with the practical, how do we actually do this? I think we all understood what the law was, but it was really how do we physically go about creating the accounts and what the chicken or the egg, what came first. So it was a little confusing, but we did have a conference call with our auditor and our attorneys to kind of walk through it. And from that, that's what you have before you. And basically, the steps are to hold the election, which was completed November 5th, canvass the election results, which was completed on November 14th, report those results to the State Comptroller's Office, which was completed on November 21st. There was some specificity to how we did that, and we were very careful to make sure that was done correctly. Then the EDC continues operations and disposes of assets and applies the proceeds to outstanding obligations. You see the local government code citation. Right between these two steps is where there's an Attorney General's opinion that kind of came into play because, you know, this is where for us it got a little hairy about, well, how do we continue operations and pay things off but stop incurring new obligations? You know, at what point does that kind of feels like a little bit of cat chasing its tail, you know? So there's an AG opinion, and I think we included it in your packet, that basically said that you could create an escrow account where the funds would be placed to fulfill future obligations, and that would be deemed as satisfying the obligation. So the act of creating the escrow account and putting the money in there would fulfill that step. Then once we've completed all those obligations and they've been satisfied, we're again to notify the Comptroller's Office. And this is where we would cease collection of the taxes after the last day of the first calendar quarter, beginning after the date of notification, if that isn't really tricky to understand. Once all the obligations have been satisfied, we would transfer the remaining assets to the city. Then we would file a certificate of termination with the Secretary of State, and this is basically dissolving the 4A corporation. So what we have done already is we've completed steps A, B, and C, and the action today would authorize the town manager and the finance department to create the escrow account where all the assets of the 4A Economic Development Corporation would be transferred. So we would transfer all the funds into this escrow account, and any obligations that we currently know of or that might come up in the future would be satisfied from that escrow account. Once we've, and this is something we talked about a lot with the auditor, is once we've satisfied those obligations or know the amount that needs to remain in there to satisfy future obligations, then the balance would transfer into the general fund. We have a retreat scheduled with the council members on January 24th, Rachel, I think that's correct. And at that retreat, we'll have policy discussions about how they're going to allocate the money that's transferred, and also how they're going to allocate the money, the tax revenues that are continued to come in. They've already said that those revenues will be allocated towards public safety and roads, but we need them to give us the percentages and the exact allocation. So that'll happen during that retreat. We'll have that policy discussion, and then in the next meeting, they would vote on that publicly and adopt that. Following the transfer of all the funds into the escrow account, the town will retain adequate funding to meet all 4A obligations in said account. At the time that we wrote this, it was around $700,000 that we felt like we needed to keep. I think there's some obligations that we got billed for this week that Phyllis went ahead and processed. It was for the center next door. He did get a CO, so we're going to go ahead and process that. So these numbers are going to be shifting on us pretty good, but it gives you a sense of what we're talking about. Funds in surplus of the identified amount will be transferred to the general fund account at a future date. It's estimated at about $2.3 million. At a meeting scheduled in January 2020, the council will provide policy direction on the assigned use of said funds. Additionally, at the January meeting, the council will direct staff on the percent allocation of new sales tax collections into public safety and roads account. Then the council and the 4A do need to vote to direct me to file this certificate of termination with the Secretary of State following the transfer of funds to the escrow account. So today we're really getting authorization for you for each of those, from you for each of those steps. Now with that, I'm happy to try to answer questions, but it'll probably be a team effort between the attorney and Liz and Phyllis and Rachel.
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
Turning my thing on. Okay, so we were talking a little bit here. The escrow account, all the funds will go into the escrow account.
That's correct, sir.
Out of escrow are the bond funds, the incentives we've already agreed to, and certain operating expenses that were budgeted for 4A for the year. And that was part of my email to you, Susan, was asking, I know those are half 4A and 4B, we're splitting a lot of those expenses. And those funds that are sitting in escrow, we agreed to pay salary of ED plus maybe some little support, I don't know, legal, and what's that 15 grand? That's kind of a general payback.
Yeah, it's for the services that the town provides.
Okay, so, and what I think I'm understanding now is things like dues and you know, maybe, you know, web development, some of this other stuff that we've talked about doing, those will not be paid out of the escrow account?
If there has been an obligation made by you all, then yes. But if there's not been an obligation made by you, then I would think the answer would be no.
Okay, so basically we're considering, and I'm just trying to get the breakdown of the expenses that we're agreeing to pay. So salary is considered the an obligation for the rest of this fiscal
Because it's
year.
budgeted, you accepted and adopted that budget, so we felt
Well,
like,
all these expenses are in the budget.
yeah, and I think on some of them, because we don't have anybody in that position right now, you know, some of them I just don't think we thought are gonna come up. So, you know, for example, dues or, you know, things like that haven't already been paid. You know, I think we were feeling like those could, you know, there's a lot of salary savings in the other departments as well. So, I mean, it's, all the money is there. If something needs to be paid And, you know, there's the amount that gets transferred to the town as well. So, I mean, I think my point is that the money is there. If we need to cover something, the money's gonna be there to cover it.
And I'm just curious, just from when we're finally passing and wrapping this thing up, and as the treasurer, I'm just trying to get a clear understanding of what policy is as far as what would have been considered budgeted 4A expenses and typical ED expenses come through. Are those going to be available to be paid out of escrow, and they're going to do that? And, you know, and that's fine for me. I just want to know what's coming through the escrow. What funds are being tapped to do what we're going to be doing this fiscal year versus what funds are going to the general fund of the town. That's the reason I'm asking. You know what I'm saying?
There's money.
Makes sense.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to consult with the attorney to make sure she agreed. But we both agreed that the salary, yes, is a commitment because there's an employee that's been hired, but like a dues or subscription, we didn't feel like was something that would be covered out of the escrow account. So if there's something where, you know, that's hanging out there that's gonna have to be paid, that's not, you know, being covered in another place, then we're gonna have to go in and probably do a budget amendment out of that amount that's transferred to the town.
Okay, so legal, it would be considered the same as salaries?
Yes, because we have an agreement with them for providing these services, but that's going to stop as soon as we dissolve. You know, once this process is done, we should have no more legal consultation on 4A's behalf. There will continue to be 4B consultation, and it's hourly rate, so.
So the sales taxes will keep going into the escrow funds through March, assuming you get the notice in by December. And then we're discussing the first bulk transfer to the general fund. And that doesn't have to wait till March 31st to occur, is my understanding. It can happen anytime after when?
After we've put the, after we put the amount in the escrow account, so our auditor recommends that all of it gets moved into the escrow account, every penny of it. And then from the escrow account, we'll transfer to the general fund anything above and beyond what we believe those commitments to be. We actually believe them to be a little bit lower, but we're gonna set it at probably 700,000 minus what you're paying out this week. The 700,000 is really what we kind of thought was a safe number to make sure we have plenty of money to fulfill all the obligations that might be out there. And then as soon as we have that number, and you know, the numbers move on us constantly, as Liz always tells me, but as soon as we have that number locked in, we really are free to move that other balance into the general fund.
And can that be moved before the comptroller's notified that the expenditures have been covered?
We believe so, yes.
So the day you set up the escrow, you can transfer the money?
We could,
You could, technically.
technically.
Okay,
I
and then,
I don't think that we will, but technically we could.
and
I mean,
then,
for us, the important step right this minute is kind of the sense of urgency is to get the escrow account created and get the money transferred into the escrow account, because if we let it go over the end of the year, then we create a whole nother quarter where that money continues to flow. And that's what I was kind of talking about, that there's, you know, some really hard lines of it's important to get things done so that it doesn't just kind of carry on and carry on.
I agree. So then, there's a bulk transfer that'll take place, and then there's gonna be a transfer of at least 3 months' worth of sales taxes. And I think the payment of the, if we do collect any of those special assessments, those will go into the escrow as well. So then basically at the end of March, you're looking at clearing it out again?
Yes. Anything that's above and beyond the obligations goes to the town, and then, I mean, it says it in the law, it says it in the AG opinion, you know, everywhere. It's very consistent with, as long as you retain the amount that needs to be retained to meet the
Right.
obligations, everything else gets transferred to the creating entity, which is the town.
Okay.
And trust me, this is pretty complicated, and, you know, we have actually 3 attorneys involved, plus our auditor, plus this whole room full of people to unweave this and make sure that we are doing everything precisely as the law dictates, so.
And I appreciate that a lot. Okay, thank you for explaining the current thinking on the process.
Did I read in somewhere in all that the sales tax is discontinued at some point?
Yeah.
That portion of it that goes to 4A?
No, it sounds like that, and it's a very scary thing, but it's discontinued for that purpose, but the proposition actually reestablished it to go to the town. So I know it, trust me, if you didn't think that, didn't give me the shivery timbers,
Two
but
places
yes.
in there it said
I know.
the comptroller's office will be notified that the tax will be not collected or whatever.
Right, yeah, but if you read the proposition, it says, and establish a sales tax for the town of Sunnyvale, so.
In the unlikely event that one of our businesses that we provided incentive for would default, whether it be for CO purposes or repayment purposes of the special assessment, et cetera, who's responsible then for the legal fees and the collection fees to
Yeah, that would be us, we would take
the
on the
town?
obligation.
The town, since the town is now receiving the 1/4 cent portion that was originally assigned to 4A, then the town would be responsible.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of this process that we're taking on the obligation.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so what you need us to act upon is to make a motion to approve the resolution to dissolve the town of Sunnyvale 4A Development Corporation.
Yeah, bear with me.
I didn't see the resolution
Yeah.
in here.
It's in there, it's, I think, at the very back.
Yeah,
the
last 2
Yeah.
Is that the one that the town, we're approving the resolution that the town is approving?
Same.
Same thing? Okay.
Same
Maybe
resolution.
that's why, I didn't see us signing separately, it was just a council signature.
Yeah, it does just have for council signature. I don't know if I should.
Yeah, we need to have both of them.
Okay, I can get one for y'all to sign as well.
So I think for the motion, if you go to your packet to the resolution that's number 19-48, that is now for the town, but it's going to be for your board as well. If you would make a motion, it's, I move to approve a resolution of the 4A Economic Development Corporation, replace your name with town council, and then approving the dissolution of, and then just read the rest of the caption of that ordinance.
You know what page that's on the packet?
45 and 9 in the PDF.
Let me make sure. Yeah, it's 45 and 46.
Okay, mine, it starts on 45.
If you would have,
Another one to
Susan, theirs will be 1949.
Terry, could you guys, for the motion, just to be really safe, we're going to be overabundance of caution here. Could you read the caption and call it 19-49, and obviously replace your name with 4A? But then could you read the caption and section 2? It's on the back of the page, and the section 2 is each of the steps we're going to take, and it would just feel better that you're acknowledging each of the steps that we're taking, which is section 2.
Okay, so resolution 1949,
Yes, ma'am.
and then it's supposed to say a resolution of the,
4A Economic Development Corporation.
or type A.
Yeah, either way. So that paragraph, and then read section 2, just that paragraph under section 2, because it specifies each of the actions. I don't want to have to bring y'all back here.
Is that the only section that would appear on the 4A resolution?
No, well, the whole thing will be there, but we don't have to read the whole resolution. Normally, the caption suffices for the rest of it, but I'm just being overly cautious by having you read that section.
Section 2, you said?
Yeah, because it just has each of the steps outlined. I just want to make sure that we're really clear about it. And I'll have council do the same thing tonight.
All right.
Somebody didn't make it.
Oh.
Resolution 1949, a resolution
You were doing that we started.
Section 2.
Susan, is that top part of the resolution the only place that that needed to be changed? Oh, wait, I see. I got one more slide.
Section 2. Okay, am I making this motion?
The signature line,
Yes, I got
and
that.
then the passed, adopted, and approved by the town council. That last line in the resolution. And then section 5. Actually, there's, why don't you do a search and replace for town?
The now therefore be it resolved line.
Yes, that's the one I'm on.
Just to make sure we get them all.
Got that
Are
one.
you okay for us to make a motion? Franklin?
Okay, we're going to make a motion, Resolution 1949 of the Type A of Economic Development Corporation approving the dissolution of the Type A Economic Development Corporation and ceasing the sales and use tax for the promotion and development of new and expanded business enterprises at the rate of 0.5% and adopting a 0.5 cent sales and use tax to be deposited in the Town of Sunnyvale General Fund pursuant to Chapter 321 of the Texas Tax Code, so that the sales and use tax rate remains the same. Section 2, that this resolution hereby authorizes the town manager to direct the creation of a reserve/escrow account, type account, to which all assets of 4A EDC shall be transferred, and that all 4A EDC obligations shall be paid to this escrow account, paid from this escrow account, and that the remaining proceeds shall be transferred to the Town of Sunnyvale General Fund, and the town manager shall notify the state controller of the dissolution of 4A EDC at the required time, and that the 4A EDC and the town agree that the town shall act to satisfy the obligations of the 4A EDC from the escrow account.
Okay, can you hold on before you vote?
See, this is 1 and 1/2. Why does that just say 1/2?
Just make sure that when you're typing, this is 1.5.
So this should say adopting 1 and 1/2.
I mean, the only thing is if you're saying this, just this is only is replacing this, but the proposition language is 1.5.
So this should say changing this at the rate of 0.5% and adopting a 1 and 1/2.
Yeah, and then and the numbers they put in one
For the town.
Yeah.
The town is getting this.
Okay, we just want to make sure we have the resolution.
Yes.
Okay, we can move forward. Sorry about that.
Did he say it right? Did he read it right?
Can we, is there a way we can get a copy of,
Yeah, we'll give you one as you're signing it.
but I mean, before we.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you
We
print
want
it?
to make sure the verbiage for the one and one
Let's print it
half.
off and have them reread
Okay, give me just 2 seconds.
it. And check the,
Just not sure if do all the sections apply to us?
yeah, make sure that the third whereas stays as, the second and third both stay as Town of Sunnyvale.
Town council, though?
The Town of Sunnyvale voted, and then the Town Council voted on,
Canvassing.
so it stays Town Council.
Yes, I didn't change that. Okay.
Do you see anything else?
I'm double checking it real fast
And then that
I'll-
last paragraph, now therefore be it
Yeah.
resolved, that's gonna change, right?
Yes, I changed that one. The
Yeah.
only other one that I have a question on, can you look at section 4? Hereby declared by the intention of, should that be top?
The other ball.
That will be the EDC.
Okay, let me change that one.
So the now therefore at the bottom of the first page.
And town council appears twice in section 4.
Okay.
That makes sense.
In section 6, there's one that needs to be changed.
And then
Pass, adopted, and approved. And I do have a change to section 2. That right there.
Does section 6 end with town council for us?
Sections, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage and approval by the Top 8 Economic Development Corporation, and it is so resolved. Is that what you have? Is that the
Well, it
section?
doesn't take effect until the council approves it.
He's asking,
I'm sorry.
he's asking about section 6. Should that stay, that it doesn't take effect until town council or Top A? I changed it, but.
I'm tweaking section 2. We'll bring it over to you to reflect that their vote is really a recommendation to the town council.
Okay,
And so it would stay approved at the bottom because they're approving their recommendation.
so section 6 though, would that stay town council or Top A?
No, that will stay immediately. Their recommendation will be effective immediately.
Okay,
upon
perfect.
approval.
But it would be EDC.
Yes, yeah, and she changed that.
Thank you, I can't listen.
Yeah.
but
And
they're
it's still this
authorizing
one
the
out.
town council.
They're authorizing the town council.
So this one should also be 1 and 1 half, right?
Council has to approve their decisions. So I think it's, they authorize,
Okay.
on their behalf, they're authorizing me.
This is
Now the
Here.
council
But
has
you
to
know you
approve
won't
it.
do this.
Because you're,
Okay.
the town already
Okay.
passed one, so we're adding that other half, so that road makes it really
Make sure the top gets changed to
In my
49.
opinion. Yeah, that's the way the ballot language read.
Which one, Terry?
Oh, there's 49. Okay, never mind. I guess you're gonna give us a copy.
Yes, I'm gonna go print it as soon as I change
She's fine with
this.
that, just leave this as, this, don't ignore this, no, just leave it, authorize the town manager to sign.
Okay, so just leave it.
Yeah, don't do anything.
Okay, I think I have it. I'm gonna go print it for
Go
everybody.
print it and then we'll,
So just from a legal question, our resolution is a recommendation that the council,
Well,
they have the authority to actually do this, correct?
We're gonna leave it as an authorization and an approval. And because that is, you are approving it and you're authorizing it, but under state law, it can't be done unless the town council also blesses it. So the town manager won't actually do anything until the town council also approves their resolution.
but you need to vote to authorize it, just like you always vote to authorize things, but it never happens till the council takes your authorization and then acts on it. You know, like you vote for a project and then they have to vote to
Right.
approve you. So I think the language is fine in that you're authorizing me on behalf of your entity to do it, but I know that I have to go one more step. So I'm good with this language, I think. And Rachel's printing it right now.
It's just strange that we have to vote to dissolve our own entity,
Yeah.
and we're only a recommending body anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you are a corporation, you know, so, I mean, it's kind of a little bit different than just a normal like P and Z or something. You know, it's a little bit more complicated.
I guess it's a formality, but it's a box you have to check, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Welcome to my world.
Once the citizens have voted and it's been canvassed and approved, then everything else is just.
Can you exit out of that? We just did the way Austin told us.
And honestly, I mean, it was a little vague even about the necessity of you guys voting on it. But I think the part that concerned me was creating an account and moving money out of you as an entity without your authority, because you haven't been dissolved yet, you know, technically. So, I mean, remember the whole chicken and the egg discussion? Like, do I dissolve them first? Do I move the money first? Which do I do first? So I felt like it was safer to move the money, then I've checked the box for all the steps to dissolve. So then I can go back and dissolve. So, complicated.
Started reading and I thought,
Yeah,
I get the general idea.
that's what I felt like too. We had, I think, 6 people in the room trying to look at all the number, you know, everything. So, bless Phyllis and Liz's hearts. All the info.
So future businesses that come to town and propose help will go to 4B.
Well, they can go to 4B, but they can also come to the town.
The town has tools they can use to provide incentives as well. It would just come from the general funds.
I see. And it will have to have council approval, wouldn't it, right?
Yes.
Two.
These two over here. The word with it for me?
We just had a thought over here. This one will actually be 48 because they're voting first.
Okay.
Or
And then-
because it's in the
or-
agenda already,
With the
48.
numbers.
doesn't matter.
It's all right. I don't know.
Legally, it doesn't matter. And
Okay, no,
just
it's-
whatever for your bookkeeping is easier.
Okay.
Okay,
I already had that one down as 48,
okay, okay.
so if legally it doesn't matter. You're okay. Do you want a copy?
So should we let this motion die for lack of a second? Will we do that?
Okay, fine.
I don't think the sections changed.
They didn't change because the new starts went in.
Thank you for doing that. It wouldn't, it won't let me open a read on.
Because we're only getting.
Yeah, but we're getting a half. So we're dedicated to the quarter. We're not
Yeah, you're right.
in a document. So the county-
Yeah. Even this one cuts 2 cents.
Why is that one?
Why does this one say
The second
Or
one.
it still is.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel, under section 1, you missed one. Did you
Where?
guys find anything else that's,
Okay. Is that the last one?
well, let's make sure
The
they don't
county
find
is
anything.
2%.
Of which half is dedicated to
What's the very, the bolded part?
Yes, the
It's
caption.
got at the rate of
right here.
1/2 .05 cent and adopting a 1 1/2 cent sales.
Yeah, that's the
What's that?
language directly from the proposition.
Okay.
And that was kind of Kate Paul's question about it, because we're leaving 4B intact, but this was, we just looked it up, that's what we were doing. This was the precise language from the resolution that we're doing away with, and basically it's just putting it with our existing 1%, because now it's all, the 1.5 is all coming to the town. So I
Oh,
think.
before it was just
Previous-
one, before the general fund was one. now
Right.
it's
Yeah.
one. Okay, now it makes sense.
Right, exactly.
So taking our half, adding it to their
Yes.
one, to make 1.5,
And it was
4B
just
still retains their
to
half.
not,
Yes, that's
to
right.
not inadvertently only give us a half. I think this is why we did the language like this, to make sure that we got the 1.5 and then 4B still gets their half.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
We're still at the,
Hold on.
okay,
I'm almost there.
okay, take your time, Paul.
You want to put EDC in parentheses at the top, you haven't defined that, have you? What
Okay,
EDC
good one.
is?
Thank you.
Where?
After the first Economic Development Corporation in the block, put EDC in parentheses since we use it later. And then we have the edit on section 1, town council.
I used to write 10Ks and 10Qs, so I'm anal when it comes to that, I apologize.
Thank you. Got it, Rachel?
I got it.
Okay.
Is that it?
Anything else?
So if they want to make the motion, I can approve, I can go fix it for her to sign.
Okay.
If we just
said
write down.
section 1 was going to be changed, or no?
Will you just
Yes,
write
it's
down
just
if
the
you
word
know
town
who it is,
council will
who,
be EDC
who
there.
makes the motion and who seconds, if you don't mind?
So if you, okay,
They haven't,
but I think that we corrected this, so we probably.
Oh, was this
Yeah, so
different?
what do we did, withdraw the motion.
Mhm.
So he can withdraw his motion and then you can make a new motion, reread the caption and section 2.
whoever made the motion should withdraw it, and whoever seconded, say they
We never
withdraw their
did second.
We
second.
never did second it yet.
And EDC right here, correct? Right
Yes.
there.
And you have to withdraw your first motion. Can you withdraw his first one and then just make another one?
Yes.
So I guess you gotta do that first.
Are we changing anything in section 2?
No, section 2 is good.
Yeah.
Okay. withdrawing my first motion, and I'd like to make a new motion in regard to Resolution 1914, a resolution of the Type A Economic Development Corporation, EDC, of the town of Sunnyvale, Texas, approving the dissolution of the Type A Economic Development Corporation and ceasing the sales and use tax for the promotion and development of new and expanded business interest at the rate of 1/2 cent, and adopting a 1 1/2 cent sales and use tax to be deposited in the town of Sunnyvale General Fund pursuant to Chapter 321 of the Texas Tax Code, so that the sales and use tax rate remains the same. That this resolution hereby authorizes the town manager to direct the creation of a reserve escrow account, type account, to which all assets of the 4A EDC shall be transferred, and that all 4A EDC obligations shall be paid from this escrow account, and that the remaining proceeds shall be transferred to the town of Sunnyvale General Fund, and that the town manager shall notify the state controller of the dissolution of the 4A EDC at the required time, and that the 4A EDC and the town agree that the town shall act to satisfy the obligations of the 4A EDC from the escrow account.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Member Weeks and a second from Member Botniak to approve Resolution 19-49, a resolution of the Type A Economic Development Corporation, EDC, of the town of Sunnyvale, Texas, approving the dissolution of the Type A Economic Development Corporation and ceasing the sales and use tax for the promotion and development of new and expanded business enterprises at the rate of 1/2 cent, and developing a 1 1/2 cent sales and use tax to be deposited in the town of Sunnyvale General Fund pursuant to Chapter 321 of the Texas Tax Code, so that the sales and use tax rate remains the same. Section 2, that this resolution hereby authorizes the town manager to direct the creation of a reserve/escrow type account to which all assets of the 4A EDC shall be transferred, and that all 4A EDC obligations shall be paid from this escrow account, and that the remaining proceeds shall be transferred to the town of Sunnyvale General Fund, and that the town manager shall notify the state controller of the dissolution of the 4A EDC at the required time, and that the 4A EDC and the town agree that the town shall act to satisfy the obligations of the 4A EDC from the escrow account. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimous.
And thank you all so much for your service. I know this was hard to come back for, but we really appreciate you, and I feel confident that we're going to be begging for your help on a lot of other things, so thank you for very much.
Same grade?
Same pay.
Okay, all right. We're going to adjourn the meeting at 5:52.
Did we adjourn? We don't have a corporation.
It's on the agenda.
What do you want?
And it's actually not 52.
What do you want done with these?
You turn them into
Okay, I'll get in the box and
Yeah, could we
cords and
have a motion to adjourn? Sorry.
I did, oh, I need a motion.
Sorry.
Adjourn. I'm just so used to doing it the other way, but she needs a motion in a second. So
Motion to adjourn.
second.
there's a motion from Member Cash and a second from Member Weeks, excuse me, to adjourn at 5:49 p.m. That's the second time I did that.
Vote.
Oh, all in favor, sorry.
Thank you.
We're not used to voting to adjourn.